You're tuned into RX Radio. Movement prescribed. Brought to you by Prescript.com. A personalized approach to keeping you healthy and making your best even better. Your hosts, Dr. Jordan Shallow and Dr. Jordan Ginta.
Okay. Does this mean we can stop doing intros now? And we're up 3, 2, 1.
Stop if you want.
Holy shit. So yeah, this is new studio. I think it's worth. First off, shout out Kyle.
Yeah.
On the mic, Kyle on the ones and twos, as it were. Kyle, say hi to the friends.
Hey everybody.
We gotta get you like a camera, or we gotta get maybe the bird's eye, the fish eye from the corner, just to see you.
Just catch the Wilson angle.
Kyle, how did you get involved in this? Let's
Good
start
question.
there.
I don't have a camera to switch to me, so just pretend that you're looking at me.
But you're the Wilson.
So yeah, you guys started the podcast. What are we?
2016.
Yeah, fuck, long time ago. And I listened to the first episode, I think, and I was like, "Hey man, this sounds like dog shit. So maybe I could help you out." You're like, "Oh yeah, sick. That'd be great." Well, I gave him all these instructions. In the next like 35 episodes, he didn't listen to a word I said.
Oh.
Absolutely, just like, and the famous story is, I saw the gain and I turned it all the way up. And all you could hear is.
So backstory, I remember first meeting your family at the Centennial Pool in Riverside. Would have still been primary. You in Concord?
Princess Anne.
You were in Princess Anne. It would have been primary school. And then I think I met you before high school.
Yeah.
And then we played guitar.
Dude, I used to dive with your sister.
That's what it was.
Dive team. Don't tell anybody. I was bad.
Was your brother on the team too?
I don't remember.
Okay. But yeah,
Maybe.
so I've known Kyle since I was knee-high to a duck. And Kyle went down the audio engineering route, and I went down whatever this is. And Kyle extended an olive branch 4 years ago. I was like, "Hey man, like you sound bad, and you also sound like an idiot. So if you're gonna sound like an idiot, you might as well sound good." And then now we're here. We did the math. 13 years later, something like that.
It's more than that. It's got to be more.
Yeah.
I have no fucking idea. I don't even know what year it is right now.
Yeah, 2021. But yeah, so the new podcast studio. This is going to be iterative.
This is it.
This is it? You want this to be the final form?
The aesthetic.
I don't know. I feel like this is us, but this can't be.
It's the portrait of Dorian Gray. Like,
Explain.
if it looks like this now, and we stay the people that we are, it will age with us. Like in Dorian Gray, he's a piece of shit, and he looks young, and his portrait begins to look decrepit and old and weird. But for us, because we're good people, this studio will become better and better looking as we record more of these.
So I think like the enticing thing is stay tuned for, if nothing else, as the decor will change.
Yeah.
Right. We still might be the same.
The audio quality will improve.
Hopefully.
The visual quality will improve.
Well,
the content will be the same.
Will be the same nonsense. This is 4K nonsense now.
I wish you guys could see the frame that I see, and it's fucking Gatorade on Killian's side and mustard.
Perfect. And that's it. That's everything you need to know about the podcast.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is a portrait of 2021. I just got back from Florida.
Yeah.
We did a Florida trip. Did we ever openly discuss how much COVID we got when we came back from the last time?
No.
Dude, Lundy. Did I tell you the story? So I moved into a condo building in Burlington right before I left for I went to Charlotte and went to Miami for a week and Tampa for a week in like late October, early November. I remember I was there for the election. And when I got back, me and this kid, and you can listen to past episodes, we weren't doing good. No. We were like Butch Sundance and the COVID kid. Like it was just not like we were hacking up a lug recording at his place. One of the days after I got back, when I think I was right in the middle of it, these two guys show up, and they didn't even show up. They walk into my condo, like my building's still under construction. These two guys in like hazmat suits walk into my condo unannounced, and I'm sitting there like making bacon with my shirt off in the kitchen. And I look up, I'm like, "Can I fucking help you with something?" And they're like, "Oh my God, I'm sorry, we didn't realize anyone was living here." I was like, "What do you mean?" They had like the orange jumpsuits on, and they're like, "You can't smell that?" And I'm like, "Oh fuck." And I didn't really think about it. Like, I am cooking bacon and I can't really smell it. And he goes, "It smells like raw sewage. Like, we've had so many complaints coming from this unit." like, you honestly don't smell that? It's like the time where Kramer was in the thing after they fumigated it.
Yeah.
And like, I was just living there. They couldn't believe that there was human life. Like, it was some sort of like some olfactory Chernobyl going on. And I was just sitting there like, this isn't good. I need to put this back in their court. I was like, you guys are crazy. You guys are nuts. I'm sitting there going, I'm not okay. Like, I should probably not be in public for a while. Yeah. And then, but no, I just got back and I did the mandatory COVID. I didn't know that you could get away with it. You know that video that went viral that you could just like leave the airport?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So I stood in the line that looked like it was made by like, I don't know, Doug Ford's niece on a fucking Etch-a-Sketch. It's like when the maze to get to the thing is stupid, you know the thing that you're waiting for is going to be stupid. Right. Yeah. So I sat in that. It's an ordeal, man, because everyone in the line is complaining.
Yeah.
And I'm as guilty as this as any, and we all just sat there.
Yeah.
And we just did it. And it's like, I couldn't help but think of the conversations that you've had with me about the Adolf Eichmann thing.
Yeah.
And the banality of evil. And it's, I remember going, like, I had this really ironic conversation with a cop because they're kind of there for crowd control, like in case someone pops off. And I went up to the cop, like, has anyone really lost it yet? Like, just gone stir crazy? He's like, not yet, man. Like, pretty low key, you know, Canadians. I was like, okay, bet. And then he's like, whatever, man. I'm just here collecting overtime. And I'm just like, that right there. And I turned to him like, yeah, you'd probably use that money and go on vacation, huh? And I walked away and he didn't get it. Because obviously you're not going to go on vacation if you got to come back and sit in this fucking line. But yeah, that was like the most, I don't know, chilling, stirring, concerning act of obedience I think I've ever been a part of myself. And I left the other side of it. And I saw the video of the guy just like taking off and just go, fuck you, I know my rights, I'm out. I'm like, that's concerning that I stood in that line.
I guess so.
That's it? What would you have done?
I'd probably stand in line.
Yeah.
Because here's my thing. Somebody said to me last year, they said, is this the hill you choose to die on?
Right.
And 100%, if I'm on a hill, I'm dying on it.
Sure.
But at other times, I think, what is this act of rebellion doing for me?
Okay.
Because we all kind of get upset about things in isolation, right? This happens on the internet all the time. Somebody reads something, they don't agree, they get upset in isolation, they reach out, they freak out, they comment something, they whatever. And it's like, dude, you only ruined your own day.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm going to stand in this line, they're going to shove something up my nose. I'm going to go home, I'm going to return to what I do. I could easily walk out and make a big scene about it. If I did walk out, I probably wouldn't make a scene. I'd just be like, fuck it, I'm out of here. But I more so look at the people who like take a stand about it. And I just go,
So you're seeing it as like they're making like, why is this their choice? Like, why is this the thing they've chosen to be the hill that they die on?
Yeah, like, why are you driving yourself into that state?
So it's more so a question of like, what else is going on in your life that the 45 minutes of the swab up the nose from the nurse is the thing that drives you over the edge.
Yeah.
Like, why are you that close to the edge
Yeah.
if that's the thing that just sort of flicks you off into the oblivion?
And I think, too, like, when I look at the airport and the ridiculous things they have done at the airport for years, it's like, now they're going to swab your nose. They make you take your shoes off and your belt off and your cell phone out and walk through the thing, and the guy grabs your dick. And you know what I mean?
He just uses the back of the head.
Oh, yeah, the back of the hand.
That makes a huge difference.
Yeah, he gives you the knuckle job.
Yeah, this is shout out like great MS Hetherington handies right there with the old back of the head trick.
And I think that's kind of where I come to it, right? Like the guy gives you the reverse gorilla grip. You take your belt and your shoes off. They x-ray you. And then it's like on the other side, they're going to stick a thing up your nose. It's like, well, I already did the other degrading dumbass thing.
Right.
This is a new dumbass thing at the airport. I'll do it.
Yeah. That's a fair point. And I mean, I definitely question like those people who have made that their choice, like made a choice for that to be the hill to die on. Like at the end of the day, and I find comfort in the fact that no one knows what they're doing. And I think this has proven that now more than ever, that like no one has any idea what's going on. And it's licensed me a certain level of like confidence in talking about things that I don't know anything about.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, 15 years of my life, all I've talked about is like working out and training and all that stuff. And I feel like I know like maybe 1.5% more than other people. But then I realized like, well, what's the big difference in that 0.5% of other things that I don't know anything about anyways? Like, fuck it. Let's just talk about it because everyone else seems to. Like to your point about the internet thing. When I was flying, that now everything's comes pre-packaged and like everything's wrapped in plastic and all this, and that I don't understand the paper garb. Like
Yeah.
everyone that works on a plane now looks like they're about to paint your living room. Like they got this fucking white paper.
What is with that?
They look like beekeepers. It's like, dude, can I have a Diet Coke? And they got a fucking beekeeper's mask on. I was like, what the fuck? And I just don't get that part of it. And I posted something while I was on the plane, and I was like, I'm confident that like something to do like that cooties was more of a detrimental physiological malady than COVID. And I had 50 self-righteous fuckers in the DM going, you know what I love? This is my favorite statement I ever get. And I don't put up crazy inflammatory shit all the time. Not like you.
No, not like
You're
you.
the fucking worst.
I'm the king.
And you do it with a straight face. I've had maybe 5 or 6 people with that post go, be better.
Be better.
Be better.
Wow, then.
Man, I just can't anymore. Like I try to see other people's side. Like I try and understand where people are coming from. Every now and then you just have to go tell people to go fist themselves.
Pretty much.
Right? Like there's no other way around that. Like, because be better is not saying be better, is do what I would do. That's what I heard.
Yeah.
Is do react how I would react. And it's like, what gives you the fucking right, man? Yeah. And it's like kind of what you said earlier. It's like the antidote to a bad idea is a better idea. Mm-hmm. Right? Like you're like, fuck. I had a guy the day before that go, hey man, like you think you'd be able to help more people if you didn't talk like a textbook? It's like, unfollow me then. I don't care. Like it's right there. Just hit the unfollow. I don't understand why people choose to pollute their days with things that upset them.
Well, I think it's funny too, right? Like I always think about it, and like what you had said, it's like unfollow me. The idea is like, I may be talking, but you're listening.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm not listening to you. I don't know who the fuck you are. And I honestly don't. If you tag me in a fucking caption, I don't know who the fuck you are, because I don't go on Instagram. You do.
Right.
You know what I do? I go off Instagram and I fucking pay my bills.
Right.
Maybe that's what you should do. But I think we've insulated an environment now with all the quarantines and the lockdowns that it's people don't have jobs. Right. Think about it. It's a bunch of people with nothing else to do for 8 hours. All of the people talking shit on the internet couldn't talk shit on the internet because they had to be somewhere for 8 hours that didn't let them do that. They got home. They were tired. They ate dinner. They went to bed. They had no energy to talk shit. Now they get up and the world is their oyster.
So you think that was the number one thing in preventing the amount of shit talking on the, because I have seen a stark increase in shit talking in the internet.
Increase.
Right? So the thing is that I want to remind people is that, look, at a certain point, and it might not be now, but real life still exists. Like I'm still 6 foot, 265. And there's going to be a day where I might be in front of you and I'm going to remember. Mm-hmm. Like I'm good with faces, especially people who are throwing shade. It's like, and there might be a time where real life doesn't exist anymore. And we might find out that this is all a fucking simulation, right? But for now, it's like, if you live in a glass house, man, like that's sandbox rules. Like don't be throwing fucking stones. And people now are getting so liberal in the way that they just defame and openly like trash people on the internet. Yeah. It's like, look, every now and then, man, like someone's going to show up at your doorstep. Like someone's going to take exception to this in real life, and you're going to have real consequences.
I think it's like, it goes back to my parents when I was a kid. They're like, you want to talk shit to somebody? Be prepared for the consequences. Because I'd like get pissed at school and I'd tell my dad, I was like, this kid's a fucking idiot. And you know what I did? My dad would go, do you want to say that to him? I'm like, I do. And he's like, then just prepare for the consequences. Go say it. Say it to his fucking face. Yeah. See what happens. Dude. And it's like, I've been punched in the face a ton of times. Fuck it.
Do you remember, Lundy, were you there at the beach that night I got sucker punched by Randy Hanna?
I was there, but I don't remember.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, that's RIP the beach, right? So there was this club on Olette in Windsor, and everyone swore that they hated it, but everyone secretly loved it.
It was the best place ever.
More marriages have stemmed from people who hooked up at the beach on Olette than like literally anything. It's like you meet at, this is the Windsor love story. Ready? You meet at the beach, you get married at the art gallery, and your reception's at Foglar. Now, how many fucking weddings have we been to? And that's the whole story. And anyways, I remember I forget the lead into it, but this kid that I knew, he's a couple years older than me, his friend was dating a girl, whatever, and he didn't like that I was there, and he went to his friend's kid named Randy that I knew, and told him like, hey man, this Jordan guy's here. And Randy got a running start from the other side of the patio. And I was it just so happened that I was talking to someone else, and they were really interested in why the little fucking Lebanese kid was taking a running start behind me. And I turned right as he was throwing, and I caught one on the bridge of the nose, man. And it took me to a knee for sure. I woke up the next morning with just 2 raccoon eyes and a fucking chip on my shoulder. And I walked down the stairs, and I'll never forget my mom and dad. They looked at me and they said, "What did you do?" And I was like, fuck yeah. Like that's, and I look back and even in the moment I wasn't pissed, because it's like, what did you do to deserve that? Right. And my mom is like, I don't know, everyone kind of knows Louise. Were you there when I knocked my teeth out playing road hockey? I remember I got my teeth knocked out playing hockey. And there was like this whole thing of like, oh shit, who's going to call Shallow's mom? Like, I don't know. She's a mom, right? Like she's kind of protective. She's kind of nuts. And my mom, even though that, like when I came over the stairs with those 2 raccoon eyes, she was even enough to be like, what dumb shit did you do? Yeah. What dumb shit did you do to end up getting fucking landed at the bridge of the nose, just coming down like complete raccoon eyes for like probably 2 weeks. And I feel like a lot of people aren't taught those consequences. The consequences we've talked about kind of in a reverse setting before, where it's like, look, put some stuff out there, but it comes down to the intent, right? Like we talked to a lot of our coaches about like, hey, if you want to like post content about training and shit, yeah, go ahead. I was going to say someone's going to say that you're wrong. Like who gives a fuck? Yeah. Right. But going after someone for what they do is different than going after someone for who they are. Correct. Right. And I think that's where the consequences change, right? When you go after someone for what they do, it's like, oh, incorrect versus correct, like empirically sound or not. And it's like, okay, yeah, mechanics and whatever, who gives a fuck? When you start going after people for who they are, that's when I take exception. That's when I start taking notes.
And my thing too is like, you came back to intention, and like the whole time you're talking, that's all I could think about, because it comes down to like that idea, right? It's like, dude, if you want to say something, go ahead and say it. But it's like, what happens when the person responds? Like, is that what you wanted? Right. Because like I've talked some shit in my life, man, and I've said some shit to people to rile them up because I wanted to. It's like, yeah, I talk shit because like I want to get a rise out of you. It's like, hit me. I want you to hit me. You know what I mean? Like, dude, I got in a fight. So my dad worked at my high school. And it was my first day on the rugby team. And this kid comes up to me and he says, Mr. Hamilton says we need to fight. So I punched him right in the fucking face. And he was like, what the fuck? And I was like, my dad would never say we need to fight. Because if you want to fight, I'm just going to fucking hit you. And that's the thing on the internet. Dude, don't ask somebody. Just tell them. Yeah. It's like, don't ask if we're going to have a debate, because I'm not, because I don't debate about things. Because it doesn't pay me any money. Right. It doesn't pay me any money. It doesn't play into my day in any way. I can easily put my phone down and forget about it. So it's like, you want to have a debate, you make a post. You got a problem with what I say? You fucking post about it. You post about it to the 400 people that follow you, and let's see if they agree with you. Yeah. Who gives a fuck?
Yeah, that is the antidote to like a bad idea is a good idea, but I don't think people want the antidote.
No, they don't.
People just want the argument. That's all right? It is. People just want that discussion. And it's I don't want to say it's sad in the sense that I pity it, but like I understand it, but that's a choice you're making.
Again, say something, but don't do it because you think the other person's not going to respond. Right. Because I get into these things on the internet, and the one reaction I get from people every single time someone talks shit is, I didn't think you'd respond. And I go, and that's exactly why you said it.
Right. Yeah. It's the punching the guy in the dark. Yeah. Right. And it's a coward move. And I think with, like, I don't know, and I've talked a little bit about a past podcast about the internet's just pulling on the string and like pulling on the thread of like human morality. Like we're so wired to be, I think we're wired to be worse. I was talking to Marcus about this a few weeks ago. Like I think the default human nature is to be self-preserving. 100%. Right. So it's like now it's a weird landscape where, you know, you'd have to be like the guy with the biggest stick in the jungle to be able to make it through. But now it's a weird that you can be some pencil neck kid in the Silicon Valley making $250,000 base salary, and that's all of a sudden arisen to the top of, or you can be fucking short in, what was it, GameStop? Yeah. You can be short in GameStop making like 17 racks overnight, and you can be an idiot. So like
you can be a frog emoji.
Right. And I talked about this when I was flying. It's like there's such a divide between power and competency, right? That people assume power and they don't assume competency, or that they're not confident enough to really prove that power, which that never existed before, right? Technology allows power and competence be dissonant. Look at the fucking technology in this room. You guys are just seeing the murder sync from Saw, where one of us is going to dissect a dead body later, and we're looking at like Starship Enterprise. But it's like, I think we both assume some level of responsibility around like, okay, you have a social media following, you have a podcast, you have people that listen to you for whatever reason. It's like, give them a reason to listen to you.
Correct.
Give them something to say. And I think that comes down to like what is the intention? Is the intention good or the intention bad?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think the intention with our podcast is generally positive for the most part, even though it might come off with, you know, stories of punching people in the head and going over the counter with fucking ball peen hammers and shit. But like, at the end of the day, it's like, you know, you're an agent of the universe. That's what I tell people about you. It's like, you're necessary evil sometimes.
Well, like I was talking to somebody about it the other day, and they said to me, like, why do you say some of the things you say? And I said, it's because I know there's people out there who want to say it but aren't willing to, or want to say it but don't feel comfortable saying it. And because I have this abstract identification with what consequence is, I'll fucking say it. What's my investment?
Right.
What's somebody going to do? DM me? Go ahead. I'll give you my address.
Yeah. Well, and that's the end of all arguments is a fight, right? Like, I think
essentially what it is.
That's where once you've kind of been comfortable with that landscape, then it's kind of this like, well, yeah, go ahead, do whatever the fuck you want.
And like, I learned this, and like, dude, everybody who listens to this podcast, like, they're homies. Like, I like everybody and I like you. And I learned this when I was young. It was like, it's within your capacity to know where you end an argument, but some people take a long time to get there. Like you said, everything ends up ending in a fight.
Right.
So I just started with one.
Okay, if this is the end of the road, let's just see what you got.
Well, that's my thing.
Yeah.
It's like, you want to have an argument? What about I just punch you in the fucking face? Because it's like, that's either going to be how this wins or how this loses.
Well, and that's
so why are we going to talk about it?
Well, that's the funny thing too. Is like, that really proves that most people aren't necessarily like passionate enough to the point, because we talked about this earlier, like, is it really passion that drives it to us? Like, is it just a search for some sort of responsibility? Like, I feel like people want to be the steward of morality. It's like, look, I put a post up about comparing COVID to cooties. Like,
yeah.
No one, some guy was like, oh, you're like a medical professional. I'm like, let me stop you right there.
Well,
let me stop you right here.
Yeah,
like,
take the doctor
I'm wearing the Versace slippers you got me for Christmas. Like, what's professional here? But it's like, I feel like people need, and this is something that when you recognize this, you get to choose what vehicle that you arrive at this meaning from. Like, people need to find meaning in their lives through adopting responsibility. Yeah. People feel responsible for putting out what they see as fires on the internet when, like, I'm posting about a shitty flight experience. Like, you know what the fucking process was? I got to Fort Lauderdale Airport, and you need to wait in an astronomically long line to prove that you've taken and like you have a negative COVID test, and they give you a piece of blue Bristol board that someone cut up at like the Air Canada line. Like, this blue Bristol board. I'm like, yeah, why don't you give me an armband while you're at it, you fucking fascist? Like this, and then I go into the line, and then you go show them your passport, and then you fill out this other thing. If I get shot in the head one more time with a fucking temperature gun, I'm going to lose my shit. I'd rather it be a Beretta at this point. Like, I can't deal with, like, let me check your temperature. It's like, why don't you stick your finger up my ass?
Well, they're doing that in China, man.
Shut the fuck up.
The anal swab.
No, they're not.
The anal swab is way more accurate than the nasal swab.
No, it's not.
That's what they're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I've never stuck it up the nose. I thought that would be an interesting orifice. But are you joking?
I've stuck it up the butt.
Yeah, we know. Everyone in the world knows. How? Anyways. You're saying when you go to China,
I don't know if it's when you go to China, but I know in China there are reports that are saying they're doing anal swabs as they are far more accurate than the nasal.
That's incredible.
So until I get proof that anywhere I go isn't going to anal swab me, right, I'm going to stay in my condo.
Yeah, that'll definitely.
It's a big deterrent to me.
That'll keep your boots on the ground. Try to not get
keep my butt in my pants.
That's insane. But that was a process. You wait in one long line, and you go through, and you get a little thing that says, we read the negative COVID test, and then you get your little blue Bristol board, and you take it up to the fucking counter, and you go on the plane, you sit down, you got to wear the mask and all that. The beekeepers come out and give you a little fucking food package. It's like the Bubble Boy episode of Seinfeld. It's like everyone's just talking at you through clear plastic. You get back to Pearson. You get shuttled through this thing. You end up in this little rat race maze. Some person shoves a thing up your nose after an hour and a half. You leave. You get your test results back. And then you still have to quarantine for 14 days. So I have a test 72 hours ago said I was negative. I have a test from like the day after I land or the day I landed saying I'm negative and I still need to sit in my place all day. It's insane. But that to me was the clearest divide of power and competency in my entire life. You know what gets me through this, man? You haven't met him yet. We have a friend from back home who entered into the political sphere in the last couple of years. And it's like politics started to make sense to me when I knew this kid growing up who got into politics. I'm like, oh, okay, all this makes sense. Donald Trump makes sense. Doug Ford makes sense. All this makes sense because this is now the type of person. Because I never knew anyone up until that point who got into politics. Like, I know how to handle cops because I know who cops were in high school. Yeah. Right? I know, and I got buddies who are cops who are good dudes, but I know a lot of kids who are cops that were kind of like, they're power hungry. They're doing this. They're doing that. Like, I'm not going to try and flex on a cop. But just yes sir, no sir, very respectful because I know that's what he wants. Because I know who this kid was in high school. I never knew who a politician was in high school until my buddy fucking ran for some office in Canada. He ran for like a member of parliament in like our local municipality, and I'm like, oh. This is like a default move. Like, this is just sense. Yeah, it all makes sense, right? That was for me, and it was right around the Trump election that this was going on. I was like, oh, okay, like I get this now. Like I get that. I understand who politicians are, and they're not, and no offense, but kind of offense. Like, they're not necessarily the most competent people. So it's just, it was a really strange experience for me traveling through that, because it is. I mean, it's been a year, man. Like, and people are starting to show signs of like, okay, they don't have a meaning because they don't have a job, right? Even like, fuck. I mean, we grew up in a town where. How many people do you know, Lundy, that they gain their income from putting 3 screws in the door of a Pacifica on Tecumseh and Ford, the Chrysler plant?
A shit ton,
Yeah.
right?
Like, that's the whole.
Shout out my dad,
right, dude,
my whole family.
But that's a noble existence, man. Like, and my whole block, like on Kingston Crescent, other than my parents, everyone works at Ford and Chryslers. And it's just like they don't necessarily like their job, but they love their family, so they show up and fucking they'll put the best damn 3 screws in that fucking door you've ever seen in your entire life. They'll do it for 25 years. They'll go to Sea-Doo. They'll take the family to Florida once a year. They get a new car on lease from some company discount every 3.5 years. They go to the bar on Friday night, and that's it.
It's like Saturday.
It's Saturday, yeah.
But it's like it's funny too. Like when you roll through Windsor, it's like you've never seen a cleaner car or a cleaner driveway than in Windsor.
Dude, water in the driveway?
Right? Watering the driveway? Is that like the universal Windsor move?
Dude, the barbecue in the driveway is the big one.
Yeah.
I've never seen it anywhere else.
No. Watering the driveway is a classic, though.
That's, I think it's very, more specifically, I think, and maybe this is just my upbringing, it's very Windsor Italian.
Oh, yeah.
Windsor Italian, Windsor Serb. Some of the Serbs got into it too.
Italians love a good watered driveway, though.
Dead grass, but I'll tell you what, that fucking driveway was pristine.
Yeah, driveway won't be thirsty a day in his life.
I never made that, he said. But like, kind of back to the point is, I think people, that's a choice. You choose that hill. Mm-hmm. And I think it's something that in this last year, it's like I've known people to be in bad spots, and they've chosen a hill, I think, worth dying on based off of a better intention or an intention that's bettering them. And I think a lot of people are just, they're succumbing to that, that lesser angel of human nature and just going to the cheap, like, oh, I feel better now. Like this Instagram slacktivism, like, I told Shallow that he needs to be better. And like, I can't deal with this fucking DM finger wagging. Like, go fuck yourself. And I guarantee you, just as like, you're talking about your dad earlier, it's like, you're not going to say that to my face. Yeah. You're not going to fucking look at me in the eye and be like, hey, man, be better. It's like, really, dude? Really be better? Like, you're going to judge me? You're going to judge me based off of something I posted on an Instagram story? Like, you don't fucking know me. Like, it's the Christian Bale thing.
Yeah, it's like, if you don't have my number, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, it's like, you don't have if you have, what is it? You have a problem with
like, if you have a problem with me, give me a call. If you don't give me a call, go fuck yourself.
If you don't have my number. Yeah. Right. So I just think, at the end of the day, like, and this is something, and you can attest to this, and Lundy, you can attest to it. When you own a business and when you're responsible for like yourself and other people, it's when you get mad, that's a you problem. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people don't have the responsibility to assume their problems as their own.
Well, this is a big thing. I was talking about this with somebody the other day. Like, a lot of people talk to me about like going off on your own to do coaching on the internet versus like working, say, in a commercial gym, because that's the route that I took. And people get upset when they work at a commercial gym because they're like, I work so many hours, but I only get 40%. It's like, cool, man. How much risk did you assume? Right. Wearing a uniform, going to work every day, where the clients walked through the door, where they paid the insurance, where they educated you. How much risk? That's the exact amount of money that you got paid. You own your own business, 100% of the risk.
Yeah.
100% of the reward. You want more reward? Take on more risk.
And I like the way you use the word assume. And because like you want to take a risk, you know, do the old John McClane thing where he wears that sign in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Right. That's taking a risk. That's not necessarily assuming a risk. Yeah. I think people from a bit, and this is kind of like where I feel like everything just defaults back to big business, but people want to make money and sell products where you want to earn an income and provide value. Correct. I think that's the shift. And when you can shift that mindset of going, oh man, I want to make more money, or I want to sell more of this or sell more training. It's like, okay, the second you change your mindset, and it'll self-fulfill in a way that starts to make sense to you and your consumer. So go from making money to selling products or selling services to earning money and providing value. Those are the two things. Like a lot of people are at this sort of, you know, at this impasse in their career where it's like, you know, we don't really know what the new landscape, what is the new training topography going to look like? What do we do? You know, hey, you've done this. You know, I give so much credit to you for just making the jump because you chose to make the jump, right? Like you were crushing it in a commercial gym setting as much as one could crush it in that setting, and you decided to assume that risk. When I did it, and this is the hard part when people call me, like I was on a call last night with a friend of mine in Hong Kong, and he was kind of talking about making this jump. And I have a hard time empathizing with those people because that decision was made for me, right? It was made for me in the sense of like, okay, I'm in a position in my life where I don't feel like I'm kind of being true to myself and my values. But I didn't, that wasn't a choice. That was non-negotiable. Where some people are sitting like, oh, you know, I'm pretty comfortable, but I want to assume this risk. It's like, dude, I honestly don't know if I was in a position where I was super, super comfortable, if I could take that risk. It was just like, oh, okay, like I don't want to live my life this way anymore. So I had to do it. So it's always something that's a difficult conversation when people reach out to me. It's like, look, dude, I'm probably the last person to ask. Like in my mind, I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a choice. So it wasn't like I had to weigh out pros and cons. It was like literally one morning and just these words came out of my mouth. And then the next thing you know, it was like, well, I don't live here anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, I need to find a place. So that was the biggest blessing ever in approaching it that way, like just kind of jumping right in. But a lot of people, if not posed with that, they'll sit on the fence forever. And who knows, maybe I would have been the exact same, right? But I think it's the idea that the assumption of risk, reward, the idea that you want to earn money, not make money, the idea that you want to provide value, not sell products. I think if you can navigate that, you'll be in a way better place.
Yeah, like I think it comes down to like shout out Pop Smoke. But
Hawk it, man.
Yeah, MPR, right? Like money, power, respect. And I think like you were talking about politics, and the default move is like you see people approach this idea from two different directions. There's the money, power, respect, and there's the respect, power, money.
Okay.
And I think when you enter into the digital space as somebody, what you were saying was like earning money and providing value. It's like you're going the opposite route. Like you're going RPM. You're going respect, power, money. It's like I build respect within the content that I create because it's helping people. That then gains me influence or power in the digital space because now more people will listen to me, and therefore then it fuels a business. But everyone's going at it like you said with like how much more money can I make here? Right. It's like, well, zero.
Right.
In fact, like less immediately because you've assumed all the risk. Like your starting wage on the internet, so everybody knows, is $0.
Right.
Is the cost of your Wi-Fi, so it's probably $100 a month to work on the internet.
Yeah.
So you're making negative $100.
There's no league minimum.
Exactly.
In this, yeah.
You roll into a commercial gym, you're kind of a dud. They're going to give you a couple clients. You're going to make a couple $100 a month.
Yeah.
Hopefully you get better. And it's like what we were talking about when we were training. It's like, man, it's okay to be average. Like I want people to know that. Like it is okay. Like especially in a world where you can log onto the internet and see some dude with a 30-pack and a fucking Rari and J's on. And you're like, man, like that's success now? It's like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Like it's okay to be average.
I don't know. Because that's tough because I mean, I definitely think everyone in this room is not average.
No, I don't think we are.
But I think using that word is like, I don't know. I would say it's okay to be happy.
No, it's okay to be average.
No, I think it's okay to be happy. So hear me out. Like, obviously, I don't think anyone in this room or anyone we work with at Prescript is average.
I don't think anyone listening to this podcast is average.
I think anyone who takes our course is definitely like more on like the enlightened superlative end of things across many, many disciplines. But I think if you hear this and you feel that as a denigration,
and it's not.
No, but this is where I think like, look, I was telling, I've had a really weird life. Like the last 3 years have been like really weird. Next to how I gauge other friends of mine from 27 to 30. I'm only now kind of coming to grips with the fact that I have an atypical lifestyle. And I've had to explain this in a very abrupt conversation to people that I attempt to have relationships with, which is like a really strange conversation. And it's just like, I can't get off this ride.
No.
Right? And that's I don't want to say it's a sacrifice, but that's a choice that I've made that I need to see this through. So I can't necessarily get off this ride. And that's a forewarning to people, because there are times on this ride where I'm not necessarily happy. But there's a certain fulfillment that comes with doing what I do and knowing that, the three of us have bootstrapped. Like, I've known Kyle since I'm knee high to a duck.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the fact, making it out of Windsor, my best friends are the guys that have made it out. Right? Like straight up, whether it was they went to school and went back, whatever, but like my best friends from back home are guys that made it, because you have a perspective on it now, right? Like, we talk about people back home, and Lundy was like, if they go to the bar Friday and Saturday night, right? They're hitting that $65 treehouse bottle. And it's like that perspective of like, look, you got to be able to get out and step up and assume that risk. Mm-hmm. For me, it's just, I struggle going home, man. Like the weddings we've gone to in the last couple of years, it's been tough for me, because you don't want to feel bad for people, because I think it's okay to be happy. Mm-hmm. And I look at those guys and, man, they're happy as hell. They got their homies. They play a pickup every Wednesday and Thursday. They go down to Forest Glade Arena. And it's like, dude, I don't get to do any of that. And I'm not necessarily sad about it, but there's days where it's like, I literally just sit in my office in my condo, or I'm sitting in a fucking airport waiting for my blue ticket to the magic COVID ride. And I was like, oh man, a couch would be nice right now. Like being able to be done work at 5 would be nice. So I don't know. I struggle with the idea, because an average, like to say average, I get it from a statistical standpoint. Like that is the average life. And I think the three of us don't necessarily live an average life. But I think the assumption of risk financially is a lot of times how that wording gets portrayed. I think some of the risk that you're taking is like, you're risking not being happy.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of times where like you end up being fulfilled. Like, just watch your Instagram stories. Yeah. It's like, this isn't a frustrated human being.
Yeah, very fun.
And so like that's the thing. Like I don't want anyone to hear that and think that being average is a denigration.
No.
Right? But I think with average comes with it security and benefit, like their benefits. And I think people, when they hear that, they can lose sight of what they have. And some people value that. Like I know people who like are gung-ho on having kids and have a couple kids and like, look, man, I just want to work till 5 o'clock, go home and play with my kids. If that's what makes you happy. And if not only if that's what makes you happy, is happiness what you're setting your sights to? Right. And I think that's what is that your choice? Is that your hill to die on?
Yeah.
It's not my hill to die on. Right. Like it's being happy and making all my decisions based off being happy. I would have never done any of this.
I would definitely not do this. Like before we met, which I think some people may lose sight of, like November 2019, I have 250 followers, all of which I know in real life.
Right.
I have 5,200 followers now.
That's weird.
That is not something I did out of happiness.
No.
But it was a question, and I think like maybe average can be taken as derogatory, and you said to be happy, and I think another way is to be safe.
Safe.
It is okay to be safe, and I think people should know that. You can be safe, and you don't have to be unsafe. You don't have to experience things that are uncomfortable. You never do.
Right.
But if you have a goal that requires you to be uncomfortable, you have to be uncomfortable. LeBron James isn't comfortable. Financially, maybe, but I'm sure he wakes up and that motherfucker's knees hurt.
Right.
Because he's LeBron James.
Sure.
And I love sports, and I always as a kid, I loved sports. And watching guys like Michael Jordan, Dennis Rodman, the 04 Pistons. Like, you think the 04 Pistons won the championship in a comfortable fashion? Those motherfuckers weren't good.
Chauncey was hurting.
Yeah. Like, those dudes hurt. Ben Wallace, Rasheed, Rip Hamilton, Tayshaun. Those dudes were hurting when they won, but they won. Because in order to do what they did, they couldn't be safe. They couldn't be comfortable.
Right.
So I think when I look at that, I just go, you're allowed to be comfortable. And you're allowed to also not win the championship.
Yeah. You
can show up every day, collect a paycheck in the NBA, never get a ring. Or you can be that guy who gets the ring.
Yeah.
So I think that's just a choice you need to make. And I don't look down upon anybody who wants to be safe, because I think we both live in an environment, like you said, you can't get off this ride. And I also know tomorrow the ride could be over.
Yeah.
What happens if the internet shuts down? I just want everybody to know if the internet shuts down tomorrow, I don't have a job.
No. Yeah, I think people want their cake and eat it too. Like they want to have their cake and eat it too. And I think people who are on the fence, there's no fence. There's no middle ground. It's you either are or you're not. Like it's a very binary existence. Like there's no half measures. And we see people who attempt at half measures and they don't have the skin in the game, right? Like people who try and have like a main 9 to 5 and then try and side hustle on the internet and like are wondering why their careers aren't where they are, like where they want them to be. Yeah. And you know what ends up happening? They end up not happy and they end up average. They end up unfulfilled and they end up average. And it's like, look, man, like these two things, the oil and water, like there's no mix. Right. And it's so hard for people. And at the end of the day, it really comes down to like, do you love it enough to make the jump? Like, do you have something that is so clearly defined for you that can be your hill to die on? Right. Or are you allowing your hills to be or like the hills you're dying on? Are you allowing those to be dictated to you? Or are you dictating those terms? Are you dictating the framework? Are you dictating the landscape in which that hill exists? And I think a lot of people, especially in the last year, where so much of people's lives have been dictated for them, right? Like it's a conversation that I can't even have with my own parents. Like I can't bring up COVID in front of Mike. I bring it up in front of my dad because my dad's like, I don't know. My parents offered me an analog solution in a digital age. They offered me like go to school, get educated, do that. And I was looking down the barrel of like $250,000 in debt going like, hey, thanks guys. Yeah, I could have started a fucking YouTube channel 20 years ago, but I went to school like an idiot. And so it's like, my dad had an analog solution in an analog age. And so he abject poverty does not begin to describe how my dad grew up in Newfoundland. Oh, I bet. My dad is such an other side of the tracks kind of guy. Like my grandma, she never really leaned onto it. My mom's mom, like my mom's side of the family is like quite proper. And like there's 5 girls and there's no like, obviously scumbag sons or anything like that. And so a very proper other side of the hill. My grandfather was really well off. And even now, like even when she was still alive, like her kind of talking about my dad's family, I always got this vibe that like that side of the family like was kind of like, oh God, they're the fucking shallows. Like, oh, there they go again. Right. Like I was going to make a Windsor reference and I'll make it off air. And I think you might even get who I'm talking about just off the context. But it's like my dad was, okay, here's the analog solution for your analog problem. It's like, okay, I'm going to become an engineer. I'm going to make a bunch of money and I'm going to pay off all my debts and I'm going to have kids and all that. But my parents thought that was best for me. And I've been able to digitize my analog solution to the digital problem. But I think a lot of people like, there's nothing wrong with having like, an analog sort of lifestyle if that's what you want. But with us, it's like we are the first generation where this is a shift in frontier, where it's like you don't need to have you can afford in a certain way to play it safe if you can figure out very clearly and define very clearly what it is you're passionate about. Like this is the only time where you can be the best in the world at something and get paid for it regardless of what it is. Yeah. 50 years ago, if you were the best chess player in the world, no one gives a shit. Right? Like you can be the best. I always remember the story of Gregory Perlman. I don't know if I've ever told this story. Have you ever heard the story of Gregory Perlman? So I forget the name of the solution. He solved this math theorem, very, very sort of like Good Will Hunting-esque. Yeah. And he was this Russian mathematician, like a polymath, like just out of this world smart. And he solved it back, I don't know, in like the, I want to say like 50s or 60s. Sort of like, when my dad was born in 55. And he solved this math problem and he was so disgusted that it took the rest of the math community 20 years to figure out that he was right. And you know what Gregory did? He fucking quit his job and moved back to Russia. And when someone in like the Economist called him 20 years later, it was like, hey man, they actually have accepted now that your solution to this math problem or whatever is correct. He said, please stop bothering me. I'm busy growing mushrooms. And he hung up and he lived on a mattress on his mom's floor and grew mushrooms in Moscow. And that's what he did. Where it's like Gregory Perlman should be a fucking millionaire. Yeah. Right? If it was a 24-hour news cycle, YouTube, podcast, Gregory Perlman would be on Rogan. He'd be on fucking CNN. He'd be on every fucking hack. He'd be on RX'D Radio. Yeah. Yo, Gregory Perlman. Let's fuck. Yeah, 100%. You want to grow mushrooms and talk math? Absolutely. Yeah. But this is the only time where this is possible now. And I think you get to choose that. And sometimes it chooses you and you can just figure out what you're passionate about. And now you have an analog or a digital solution to a digital problem where it's like, you get to choose. And it's so fucking frustrating when people choose to be like, be better with your COVID cootie post. Like, fuck yourself, man. And like, I say that from a place of not necessarily anger, but like pity. Like, I pity someone who has the time to fucking get at me in my DMs about me calling COVID cooties. I know there's a difference. Fuck off. I don't know. Figure out what you want, and then like just find your hill to die on. It's not. I don't necessarily think it's that hard. No,
I think it just comes down to people, like you said, who have lost maybe their purpose because, you know, what they were doing prior is not available to them. And just this idea that like they don't have blinders on to what makes them happy because of the way the world has changed. So maybe it's symptomatic of the environment that people are in. But I think that's something, if I'm going to play not one side or the other today and be nice on this podcast, is to say that's something to identify. If you go on the internet, the next time you go on the internet and something makes you upset, think to yourself, is this driving towards what I'm passionate about?
Right.
Is this growing my passion for something? Is this growing who I am? Is this fulfilling me? And if it's not, probably just keep scrolling, man.
Yeah, because it comes down, I mean, I don't want to drag this out too long, but it comes down to this idea.
Oh, no, drag it out. I'll drag them all in.
Well, no, it's just like, I've been playing with this idea lately. I ran into Matt Vincent when I was in Miami last, and Matt's like, "Fuck it, he's a space cadet. I love him to death, dude. 100%. Like he just goes out into orbit and runs into shit. He's a connector like no one else. Like he just knows everyone." And we were talking about, and I don't want to turn this into a drug thing. I don't want to be another fucking podcast talking about drugs. But okay, I'm just gonna be straight up. Like, do you remember when we were taking mushrooms in the Turkish bathhouse in Miami Beach? Great. Okay, that's a preface to a whole other podcast. But you remember what the guy told us? But as we were sitting in the change room of the Turkish bathhouse in Miami Beach, as he was holding like the tinfoil wrapped chocolate edible mushroom in front of all of us as we did this ceremony thing. And do you remember what he said before, we ate our little mushroom before we went into the bathhouse? He was like, you need to have an intention.
Yeah.
And dude, I've thought about that day every day since it's happened, because it's one of the funniest things that's ever happened to me in my entire life. But aside from just the humorous implication of the preface of that story of me and you doing mushrooms in a Turkish bathhouse in Miami Beach, that idea of setting an intention, it's like something we talk about and you talk about so often with skill acquisition, and it's in the level 1, and it's a vein through all of the education that we teach. It's something now that I've been like, I do everything deliberately. I do explain the contents of my condo to someone the other day, and in similar fashion to the way you described yours when you first moved into your shoebox in the sky. And my place is very sparse, but everything is deliberate. Right. Mm-hmm. Everything has its place, and everything is like well taken care of, and it's intentional. It's there for a reason. Like there's no decor, there's no fluff. There's a plant there because I need oxygen. That's why the plant. It's not because I like a ficus or whatever the fuck it is. It's like, I need oxygen. Okay, it looks a certain way, great, but that thing is going to do something for sure. There's an intention there, and I think setting your intentions, whether it's picking out a ficus, or whether it's DMing people, whether it's having a conversation with the guy who bags your fucking groceries, whether it's taking mushrooms with a shaman in Miami Beach at the Turkish bathhouse. But that stuck with me like crazy. And whether it was the mushrooms, whether it was the schwitz being 220 degrees Fahrenheit, whether it was the Hasidic Jews tripping over the fucking...
fuck me.
But like that has been something that's stuck with me since November, whenever we were out there. And it's so true. Like, just have an intention. And I think if your intention is positive, your intention is true to like yourself and your values, and whatever is a manifestation of that intention is supposed to happen.
Yeah, and I think like, dude, you explaining the mushrooms in the Turkish bathhouse, like just getting flashbacks. But and I think like going into like what the fucking our boy the shaman said, the OnlyFans shaman said before we took these fucking mushrooms. If we go back to the whole thing, like you said, he said set an intention, but like he said a few more things that if we look at Instagram and we look at the curated experience and maybe the perception-based reality that you exist in social media, and like when you go on there, not all of that is real.
No.
Well, most of it isn't real. Most of it's curated for you to either want to attain what people have or be impressed by people. Like a lot of it's not entirely real. Just like when you take mind-altering drugs.
Sure.
So if you looked at social media the same way and you said to yourself, before I open Instagram, I'm going to set an intention for opening it. Then I'm going to say to myself, I am safe. I am going to have a great time when I go on social media, and we are all friends.
Right.
I want everyone to say that who listens to this podcast every fucking time they open IG. What is my intention? I am safe. I'm going to have a great time, and we are all friends.
That's so bad. Like, I'm almost teared up because I remember him saying that in the bathhouse, and it's true. And you said mind-altering drug. I would say there's no more readily available, potentially dangerous mind-altering drug than social media.
You're exactly correct.
Right. Yeah. Fuck it. Let's end it there.
Yeah.
Set an intention. We're all friends.
I am safe. We are all friends. I'm going to have a great time.
Set an intention. We're all safe.
We're all friends. Have a great time.
Have a great time. All right. Lundo, first one in the books, homie. Tell me this recorded. Lundy. Tell me this recorded.
We're going to find out.
All right, we're going to find out. If you guys might burn after reading, that might be how this goes. Cool.